Namaskar and good morning to all the participants. Welcome to today's session on concept of online GIS and introduction to Geo Web Services. So today I'll be briefing you about the different Geo Web Services, their concept, their service-oriented architecture, and the some basics about the computation system, how online GIS systems are developed or how you can use it. Before this session, my colleague Mr. Prasoon has already demonstrated some of the basic concept of the open source GIS by taking the QGIS as an example. He has also shown you the some of the web services or geo web services from the geo portals like ISRO Bhuvan. So how you can consume this data in your own GIS project and how you can further analyze this data on the fly. So my task will be to brief you about the computation aspect of the development of this kind of geoportals and also some of the data standards, policies. I'll also talk about some popular WebGIS portals available from India as well as from outside. I have also tried to keep few slides on the open source GIS software solutions which you can use for your own GIS projects which are freely available from different websites. If time permits, we'll also discuss about these softwares today in end of the session. So let us start today's session on online GIS and Geo Web Services. So I will start from this important concept of internet, which all we are using today for various purpose, including for our entertainment, for your educations, for your data transfer, banking, commercial activities, and so on. So today this particular technology, or sometimes we also call it as a platform, is very popular. But this technology is not very old technology. You may be knowing that the commercialization of internet was started sometime in 1990 time period. So in 1990 time period, we have seen the use of this technology as a citizen services when the Tim Berners-Lee from European Particle Laboratory has developed a protocol called WWW protocol in 1989. And before that, this concept was basically limited to limitedly used by the national or Department of Defense in United States of America. Basically, they developed this system for communication purpose between their computers in their own private networks, and the concept of internet was started sometime 1960, and later stage in 1980 this was funded by National Science Foundation of United States of America, and in later stage they started to do the commercialization of this particular technology. And today if you see the users of internet, this is the latest status what I could get from the internet, that around 4.5 billion people are using internet in their life. In some areas it is very popular, but in other areas maybe a limited number of users are there. But overall if you see, the half population of the world is definitely using the internet technology, and in future we are expecting that users of this technology will grow significantly, and the access to internet will be available for all the citizens of world or all the citizens of our country also. So this is expectations, the way it is increasing today. So if you see the distribution of the users, the 50% users are coming from Asia. So of course the majority of people are living in these regions, that's why this number is 50%. And then the share of 15.9% is from Europe and 11.5% from Africa. Latin America is around 10.1, North America around 7.6, Middle East around 3.9%, and the Australia and Oceania around 0.6%. So by seeing this growth, if you see the growth of this technology, how it is growing during last 10 years, so we can say that in another coming 5 to 10 years, it will be accessible or it will be available for everyone. Now, if you use this technology or this internet for our own scientific experiments, for our own domain of geospatial technology, then you can understand this particular architecture here. Here, what is happening? We have the databases servers, where the database servers are capable to store the spatial data in the form of the raster as well as the vector data. These servers are also capable to store the attribute data or non-spatial data, and then we can establish a, a attribute relationship or a spatial relationship between these two kind of data sets, and then we can develop a system called geographical information system, or where we have the different components or computation components like a data management system, query system, a modeling environment. So once I have the data, so I can develop the models, I can develop the algorithms, I can analyze the data, and the later stage I can also include the knowledge base as a part of the system. So initially only the database was a part of the system, but slowly now people have started to include the knowledge base also part of the GIS. So then you can develop a system for effective decision making and planning related to geography, or we can solve a real world problems by using this technology. So here we generally develop the information system, decision support system, and expert system by using these all this system architecture. So here three important point what you should keep in mind is a one is a database server, second is a application server, and third important point component is a hardware, which include your network infrastructure as well as the computation infrastructure. If you call about, if you see the network based geo information services, so this is the simplest architectures what we can draw here is like something like this. The users are sitting in other side and they are accessing our system by using computers or by using the mobile devices. Or what is happening here, we are expecting that the users are having the limited computation capabilities, so that they are able to access entire GIS database or GIS tools in a simple web browser environment. So when I say the web browser, that means these are the simplest client applications which is installed into your computer or into your mobile device. So you are connecting to the servers, getting the data, and when you are submitting a request for the processing, any kind of processing, and this request is submitted to the server, and the server will process it and then give the result back to you. So here in this entire request and response system, here some of the components plays a very important role. First one is a database. Of course, the backbone of the GIS is a database servers, where all kind of data, which is attribute data, spatial data, and all, sometimes we also call it as a object oriented data. So object oriented data means I can define my own object and the operation that can be performed with these objects, and then I can store my data inside this. The similar kind of object orientation in database, if it is available, so I can use this database system to store my raster, vector data, my DEM, my TIN data, my other kind of point cloud, and so on. But similar kind of database system also can be used for the multimedia data, so which is another area we are not going to discuss. But these days the people are also integrating the GIS with the multimedia, so a different type of GIS applications are emerging. So in this entire network based infrastructures, if you see the database server, and second is the application server. So application server is our GIS software. So today my colleague has presented about the quantum GIS. In fact, the quantum GIS also is available these days as application server. So you can process the data in quantum GIS, but actually quantum GIS will not store any data. It will be used for the application purpose. And once it is done, then we will be using the web server as a gateway to communicate between the client and the server. So what is the role of web server? It is basically for making the communication between the application server and users. So once user is sending a request to the web servers, so web server is capable only to understand the HTML files, is only capable to understand the JPEG, GIF, and PNG, a limited number of file system. But web server cannot understand what is raster, what is vector, what is point cloud, and so on. So the role of web server is it will transfer this request to the application server, and the application server will recognize the request. Based on this type of request, it will take the send request to the database server, take the data, process it, and then present to the users. Now another architectures which is little bit more elaborated architectures you can see here. So here as I told you, the database server is sitting here, and this database server can be your MySQL, DB2, PostgreSQL, Oracle, or any other standard database system. And then application server will be sitting here as a software package, and then we will have a GIS server as a part of application server. And the GIS server is what is basically taking the data from the database server through application server, and then it is making the GIS data as a web compatible format. Like what is the web compatible format? It is like your standard HTML files, your standard JPEG files, or your PNG or JPEG files. So ultimately, when I am storing the vector data or raster data in the database server, it is not a static image. It is not a binary data. It is something like it is storing the numerical values in the database system, and based on the requests from the users through web server, we are processing all these requests in the application server. But here the important component, which is known as a GIS server or map server, which is basically responsible to establish the communication between the actual data and the requests. So that is a very very important component. And these days you can say that in the most of the time the GIS servers are now part of the application server itself. But earlier days it was a separate components. So some of the GIS server I will name here, like you have the map server from University of Minnesota and NASA jointly. They developed this product. It's an open source product, freely available. A CGI based architecture is implemented there. Then we have the another GIS server which is very popular called GeoServer. That is again a open source product and developed on the Java platforms. If you talk about the commercial package or commercial environments, the RGS server, RGS is also giving a GIS server product on cost basis, which is also doing the similar kind of jobs, but is a little bit powerful products, and lot of support is available for the commercial use. Similarly, I will also show you detail some of the more products in coming slide, which you can directly download and start using it. So this is the complete architectures how we work in this online GIS platform as a computation point of view. So here it is not only taking the request from the users, processing it and presenting output to the users, but here when I say the processing, it is a very very big terms. What kind of process, what kind of algorithms I'm developing here, or what kind of analytics I'll be developing here. So here these days a lot of challenges are there. If you are a researcher in this area, so you can take it as a computation challenge. It is basically a lot of data is available from the user side. So lot of data we are receiving from the social media, from other sources, from crowdsourcing, participatory approach. When this data is coming directly to our database servers, so that time the biggest challenge is a computation challenge. How quickly we can process this data, how quickly we can extract the meaningful information from this data. That is a very very interesting domain, basically where a lot of research is required. So here basically when the transactions are very very fast, we call it the online transaction processing. So on the lot of transactions are going in the data point of view, either from the sensors, because these days people are also installing the lot of sensors in the ground, and the data from the sensors is coming directly to the servers. And then we need a very very effective tools or algorithms or methods to process this data and present the a meaningful information to the users. So many thematic application can be built here, and this is a very very popular technology or popular domains in geospatial technology, where a lot of R&Ds are going on. If you take the example of Google Maps, you take the example of ISRO Bhuvan portals, you can see every month or every day sometime they are giving a very very interesting application to the users, so that the effective online system can be developed. Now, if you go to the little bit more about the GIS servers, basically these GIS servers are capable to do the mapping and visualization activities, data services, online editing of the maps, geoprocessing services, catalog services. All these are the basic features which are available in these GIS servers, and ultimately they are taking the data from the GeoRDBMS like relational database management system like Oracle. They can take the data from PostgreSQL, they can take data from MySQL. And another interesting development in this area is like your development of a very interesting database called NoSQL database. So we have also started to use the database systems like MongoDB and HBase from the Apache Hadoop products. So very interesting database systems are there where the large amount of data sets can be handled simultaneously, and we can process this data on the fly by using the GIS server products and develop a very innovative application for the users to solve a specific problem of the real world environment or geographical problems, I can say. So this is the complete architectures, and interestingly the computation architecture available for online GIS is open platforms. It's basically IT focus, cross platforms, standard based system, and very interestingly it is a open platform. So of everything whatever I am discussing here, it is not any proprietary solutions or commercial solutions, and this architecture is freely available. And here there are few international organizations those are supporting this computation architectures for online data processing and analysis. And here one technology which is very popular in geospatial technology is called Web 2.0, and this is basically referred as an interactive web applications with public participation, which allows the participatory information sharing, interoperability, centered design and collaborations on the World Wide Web. So here if you take the example of the Web 2.0, the social media can be considered, or social media applications can be considered as a typical example of it. So here what is happening, if you are opening the Facebook page, you are opening the Twitter page, Instagram page, so what is happening there, you are capable, you are allowed to modify the look and feel, you are allowed to modify your own contents, host your contents, and redesign your content here itself. And it is possible because all these kind of systems are developed by using the technology called Web 2.0. But if you compare this Instagram page or your Facebook page with traditional website of a organization like ISRO or IIRS or maybe any other organization, there you cannot do any changes. You are simply supposed to visit this website, see the contents, utilize it, and just leave it. So but in case of the social media, that is a breakthrough actually. This Web 2.0, it allows a lot of interactiveness in the web applications, so that we can develop a very innovative application there. But geospatial technology or GIS has quickly adopted this architecture in the GIS, and they modified it as a Geo Web 2.0, so that I can also develop the interactive GIS application in web environment. So like what you are seeing in the social media, you can also develop similar kind of GIS application in your browser environment. And you must be knowing about a recent development by Google called a Google Earth Engine, which can be categorized under this category. So if you log into the Google Earth Engine, you are allowed to modify your login page, you are allowed to develop your own algorithms, modify the data, and process the data on the fly. And you don't know from where data is coming, where data is getting processed, because as a users you are not bothered about it. You are simply using their cloud architectures and then presenting or developing the application as per your own requirement. Now if you know little bit more about this Web 2.0, so what we do here, it is basically in the background side we use the XML as a standard. XML is an extensive markup language, and this is a data definition language where the data is stored and then presented to the users. So the advancement of XML these days is called a JSON file. So Java System Object Notation we call it. So here the part of this data is transferred to the client. So all data will not be transferred, because if you use the JSON file and transfer to the data to the clients, so what is happening there, the load on server is reduced. So when the load is reduced to the server, so I can accommodate more number of users into my system. And then another technology which is very popular in Web 2.0 is RSS. It's a really simple syndication, and this particular standard is used by media and news channels. You can see that they are publishing their news articles or news items using the RSS feed. So what is the advantage of this technology? Basically, if you subscribe the RSS from any news channel or any other news agency, so automatically the updates will be displayed in your desktop or in your mobile device. So no need to revisit their website again and again. So this is the advantage of it. So it's a very interactive system. Then JavaScript or Ajax is another computation architecture. We call it asynchronous JavaScript and XML support. So there are various technologies, like we have the Ajax, Open APIs, REST APIs, XML, XHTML, CSS, and GeoRSS, and so on. All these technologies are working in the background, but in front end, as an application user point of view, you are getting web as a platforms and participatory applications like social media and content syndications and web services and so on. Now, if you see the computation architectures, it is based on the architecture called service oriented architecture or SOA architectures. These are the three major components of SOA. So one is a service provider. For example, suppose ISRO is having the satellite imagery, and I want to give this satellite imagery to my users, and there are two methods to share this data. First method is I should give this data as a physical data to the users. So what does it mean? Physical data means either through some media like a hard disk or maybe some DVD or pen drive. I will share the data. And other method could be I will host into my website as a FTP download. You can download, or I can host into my cloud and you can download this data. But unfortunately, in this traditional method of data sharing, where the physical data is being shared to the users, so what is happening there? If user is not visiting the website or URL or not taking the latest data from the media, then user is not up to date. So this is a limitation here. But in most of the today's applications, especially in the disaster and emergency situations, people are looking for the real-time data from the data providers. So what does it mean, real time? I will give a typical example of the satellite data reception. For example, suppose in morning 9:30 to 10:30 time period, suppose we are receiving some data from the resource one satellite in our Earth station. Now, earlier days, what used to happen, we will receive the data today, we will process for 2-3 days, and after 1 week or 10 days time, we will make available the data into CD, DVD, will send by post, and then user will receive. But today's environment, that much time is not there. People are not looking for this kind of data access. You all are practicing the online data download facilities from the Earth Explorer, from the ISRO Bhuvan Geo portal, or our own NRSC website for data download. But again here, if you implement the service oriented architecture here, then physical data download will not be required. So whenever the data is updated into the server, automatically it will be updated into your applications. So this kind of architectures, when you subscribe any API, you subscribe any web service to your application, automatically latest data will be integrated into your system. So this is a SOA architecture which is responsible for that. Here the service providers are basically hosting data as a service, and then they are registering into the service broker or service registry, and the users are searching for appropriate data from this registry. And once they find the data, and then this architecture will allow them to communicate directly to the host and service consumer together, and then they can start accessing the data. And very popular architectures, it is not limited to geospatial technology or geospatial community. It is basically used by many commercial users or many domains, including in a online ticket booking system like a Make My Trip, Yatra.coms, and so on. All are using this kind of SOA architectures, service oriented architectures for data access and providing the services. If you implement this SOA into GIS, so what is happening here? There is a organization called Open Geospatial Consortium, or OGC. Yesterday I was taking the name of this organization. Today I will discuss more about it. And this organization has published variety of service standards for different activities of GIS data. So here you must have seen about the raster and vector data, but it is not all about the GIS technology. So here we have the different data standards available. So like a data services, we have the portal services, we have the processing services, and under each category there are more than 10 to 15 such standards are available, and based on your requirement you can choose the appropriate standard, then implement it and publish your service to the users, and the consumer or user of your service will basically consume or subscribe the service into their own GIS application and can develop and a different type of application which was never envisaged by the host organization. I will give you the example of the Google Maps. Google is providing lot of satellite imagery. Google is providing lot of like your road networks, some infrastructure layer, but you don't know how many people are using this Google data for how many applications. Some of the applications are very popular like Ola and Uber. They are using for their radio cab operations, but Google has never published their data for their radio cop operation. But these companies has built a different kind of business model, how they start consuming the data of Google data and build their basically cab services. Similarly for Zomato, Swiggy, they are using for their other kind of customer services. So here this idea is basically the service provider or data provider will host the data, and then users will be using the way user want this data. So but here the user will able to use this data only if it is basically developed by using some standards, some guidelines. If the proper standards are not used, then the any developers or general software developers will not able to use this data for their own purpose. So that's why this OGC plays a very very important role here. And when we have this kind of service oriented architecture in place and standards are available, then you have to understand two important point: website and web services. These two things are totally different. If you see that provide the website, it provide the HTML page and forms for the human users to navigate and perform the functions like searching, shopping, interaction you can do in the website. And the front users and users interface through the browsers. This is a typical example, and is like a google.com is a typical website, reddit.com is another website, irs.gov.in can be considered another website. But web services are not website. You please understand, whatever concept of geo web services I am going to talk about, it is not a website. It is operations that can be called to return information. So there are some methods, some URLs will be available. By accessing these URLs, if you follow the method of accessing this data, so you can basically develop a different type of application at your end. So it invoke automatically through the programs and publicly available and standardized for use of the all programmers. So any programmer can use these web services and can develop their own software applications. So now my question is, can you give any example of it? Please write into chat box. Otherwise during the question answer session we'll be discussing about it. So the component of the WebGIS servers already we have discussed in the architectures, like a database servers, we have the GIS servers, application server, and web servers. So these are the four major component of any WebGIS applications which required at the level of host. And here this is organization called Open Geospatial Consortium, or we call it OGC, plays a very very important role. This organization vision is to develop standard for geospatial web services, and their mission is a world in which everyone benefit from the geographic information and services made available across any network, application, or platform. So here you can see three keywords. It says that any network, any application, or any platforms. So availability of data for everyone is basically the vision of this organization. So what was the challenge here? So now if you see in a traditional GIS environment, any GIS software providers, if they develop or they use any data format, any data standard and the way they want, then interoperability cannot be achieved. It was a big challenge around 15-20 years back, but today it is not a big challenge because most of the GIS software, either it is open source or commercial, are following the standard published by OGC. So what kind of standard OGC gives? The types of web services specification of for OGC are: first category is a catalog service, and catalog is basically for the clearinghouse applications through which users can search for appropriate data directly. So as yesterday I was discussing about the NSDI or GSDI. So this kind of applications where the special data infrastructure is available so that you can catalog all the services, and then you can provide a platform to the users, and users are capable or able to understand or search the appropriate data available in the different host organizations. So some of the examples are CS Core, CSW, EBRIM, CSW, and 19115. These are the service standards under the catalog service which are published by OGC. The second category of the services are processing services. These services are responsible for data processing, either it is a vector data or it is a raster data. Now, some of the example of it are like a sensor platform services, or we call it a SPS, and web processing services. Web processing services means basically it is for the raster and vector data. If you develop a algorithm or a process for vector data analysis or maybe overlay analysis, for example, if you are having the clip operation, you have the two geometry and you want clip these two geometry, and you can write a program. There is no problem using the Python or any Java programming language, you can develop it. Otherwise, you can also use any GIS software. But suppose your users are not a programmer, is not basically a software person, and then you want give this kind of service to them. So what you can do, you can develop this algorithm into the server, and then simply you give a process service to them and ask them to provide the input. Once appropriate inputs are available, this data will be automatically processed and result will be presented to the users. So what people are doing, this WPS is very, very popular for the scientific applications. So in scientific applications, sometime the issue of IPR and copyright also will be there. So rather than developing a software for different type of users, people will prefer to develop the WPS. I will give you example. Suppose you are a researcher, you are developing a algorithm or model for flood forecasting, and let us take the flood forecasting as example. So then whatever algorithm you are writing, so what and then once this model is ready and you want to share this model with your users, what do, you develop a program or some package for the Windows users, for Mac users, for Linux user or Ubuntu users, and then you will compile this package and then distribute to your users. But you think about the amount of time or quantum of your efforts required for this is you have to develop software for different platforms like you have iOS, Macintosh, Android, Windows, Ubuntu, and so on. That is a very, very big challenge and time consuming task. And then once you have distributed your application, in between you did some new research and you modify your model. Then again you have to write program or modify the program and then again distribute it. This method is called as a very, very traditional method of sharing of the models and packages. But if you implement a WPS, what will happen? In the server side, you host this URL, this process, and then whatever changes you want to do it, you do it immediately, and immediately it will be reflected to all the users. And these WPS, once you develop in the server side, do not worry about the platform or operating system of the users. It will be browser based access, anybody can access, and so your efforts will be minimized and your process or algorithm will be easily available to the users. So this is a standard developed by OGC and very, very popular in this scientific domain. So where the people develop the algorithms and share through this web processing service standards. Another is encoding. Encoding is another standard what OGC has developed. Basically in GIS, most of the time people are using this encoding method for the legend representation or representation of the legends, like styling what I am presenting into my maps. So sometimes the multilingual styling, sometimes the different color schemes, shading, and so on. So here the styling is one example, but other than styling we have something called CityGML. The CityGML is again a encoding method to represent the 3D data for urban planning activities. We have the GML, we have the JPEG 2000, KML. KML is very, very popular these days. If you are using the Google Earth engine and whatever demarcations or mapping activity you do in the Google Earth, you are downloading as a KML file. What is this KML? KML is nothing, it is simply an XML document and basically a encoding method which is implemented, and then you can use this KML file in any GIS software or any Earth Explorer environment. Basically the purpose of KML was basically a 3D visualization in the online applications. So originally this KML was developed by a Keyhole, it's basically Keyhole markup language. Company name was Keyhole. In the later stage it was acquired by Google, and 2008 OGC has accepted this as an open standard for 3D visualization. So there are number of such standards are available for encoding also, so from the OGC side. Then we have the next standard called data services. What does it mean? So when I am having the save file, I am having the raster data, and I want share this data to my users. So one is a traditional method. Already I discussed about it through the FTP, through CD media, you can download and share. But in the case of data services, if you host your data into the server, so what will happen? The vector data will basically available as a vectors. Raster data will be available as a raster to the users. So that means a simple URL from the server will act as a layer into a GIS software. So what does it mean? So no physical data download is allowed here. So directly you consume this URL from the servers. Whatever latest data is available, it will be part of your GIS project. So here two standards are very popular. One is called web feature services, and second is called web coverage services. So web feature service is basically for the vector data, and web coverage service is for the raster data. So whatever data you want share, accordingly you choose your service standard. So next service standard is called portrayal services. This is basically called for the map visualization or cartographic applications. Suppose you have the raster data, vector data or tabular data into your server, and you want make available this data to the users, but you want present this data as a digital atlas or only for visualization purpose. Then we have the popular service called WMS. Its example is web map service. It is only for visualization. If you have implemented WMS in your WebGIS applications, so original data will not flow from server to client or client to server. So limited only visualization. You can apply some legend. You can also give zooming facility, panning facility. Once users are clicking on the features, the information will be extracted. But interestingly, it will not be the static image like JPEG. It will be dynamic data, but this standard will give you data in real time from the server to the client, but limited number of operations are possible. If any data is implemented in WMS, no data analysis, no data processing is possible at the user side. Only data visualization. Then other services are also listed here. You can also refer in the later stage. Then in online GIS, 3D algorithms visualization also is getting very popular. As I told you, the KML is one of the most popular standards what people are following. I am just trying to show you the 3D model of the Taj Mahal area. You see how nicely we can fully design a city models, and these systems are very lightweight, and you can access open into a normal internet connection, and then you can make your effective city plan or any other planning activities, either disaster management, emergency, urban planning, and so on. Now next things which is very popular in the web GIS or online GIS is a collaborative mapping. Is basically idea is to involve your users in mapping activities. You know that if you are doing any GIS mapping projects, and if scale is like 1:2000 scale, 1:4000 scale, and you have tasks to complete for entire India at a time, then a traditional mapping methods what we are discussing in this course also, like in QGIS and all, will not work. It is basically for a limited number of people when they are working together and they are creating the map. But you think about the kind of map Google is having in their website. They have not created this map by adopting the traditional mapping methods. They use this technology called collaborative mapping. And this collaborative mapping is when you are involving your users in the mapping exercise. So that time they can do the mapping simultaneously, and here you can make a group, or you can take the advantage of the crowd and start building your database. It's a very popular methods. Some of the popular website where they utilize this technology called Wikipedia. Wikipedia is very famous website. You know who is the owner of this Wikipedia, who is creating this lot of data, lot of information in the Wikipedia page. It's a public, and sometime public is creating, public is validating, and public is using. Is a true data democracy which is implemented in the collaborative mapping environment also. So here the Google map making, open layers, Bhuvan collaborative mappings, and the OpenStreetMap what my colleague was showing. The OpenStreetMap is a very popular website. It is developed by Steve Coast, a gentleman from United Kingdom, UK. And in 2004, he has started this project, and today it is one of the most popular website through which you can download 1:10,000 scale map for entire globe as a vector data. It's a very interesting website. And then if you ask me who has developed these maps, in fact, if you see, the government mapping agencies in our country is not having such detailed maps with them, but by adopting or implementing the crowdsourcing concept, this website could gather such a beautiful map or detailed map of entire globe in the vector format. Now by this time, we are very clear on the technology aspect. Some data standard for the web map visualizations, some data standard for data services, portal services, for the catalog services, data processing services, and all. But now we'll see some of the popular website or geoportal where these standards are implemented, including from India and also from outside India. First I will take is Indian Space Science Data Center, that is hosted by ISRO and hosted in Bailalu, which is our basically interplanetary data, especially from the Chandrayaan 1, Chandrayaan 2, and Mars orbiter mission. Suppose you are looking for this data, then you can visit this website, you can download. It is open for everyone. Second website is Bhuvan, is a gateway to Indian Earth observation data products and services, and URL of this website bhuvan.nrsc.gov.in. They have the visualization services, data archive, thematic services, and geoprocessing services all implemented. The target study area or area is Indian region only. The data from other country is not available. If it is available for limited use or limited amount of data is there. So there are many unique applications in Bhuvan Geoportal, and you please visit this website. My colleague has already demonstrated about the data download facility, and maybe Mr. Kamal Pandey will be taking the session on that how you can use, how you can browse this website. Very interesting website. Lot of data from Indian Earth observation satellites are available free of cost for download and also for data processing. Next is a NRC Open Data Archive, or we call it as a Noida, and this particular website is address is also shown here, bhuvan-noeda.nrsc.gov.in. Here you can download the Cartodem, you can download ABIP's ortho products list 3 data, and all this data is basically physical data download, and then tile wise, map sheet wise, you can draw your area of interest, data can be downloaded. Prasun was already demonstrating you, I have seen it, so I will not spend much time on this particular slide. These are some examples of the data download facility from this website. Thematic services are another example which are hosted in the Bhuvan. Basically the maps which are derived from the satellite imageries are hosted. Like we have a national wide program called an enormous program, or under enormous program we have project called NR Census, Natural Resource Census program. So every 5 years we update different thematic maps. These maps are basically on the land use land cover maps. We have the wasteland watershed map, we have the geomorphology, lineament, vegetations, we have the other thematic map, like 7 themes are there. So every 5 years we update all these data sets and host it into this website. But the physical data download is not permitted as per the policy of Government of India, because this data comes under the classified category. But data is accessible through as a web service, that is web map service. So you can access or consume this data as a background layer in your GIS project. So lot of data is available, and I can say around 3000 plus layers or 3000 plus map layers are available for public access. These are the few screen captures of these thematic services. So you can see here the land use land cover map from the national to state to district level or local level also can be extracted, And in fact, you can also draw a area of interest or region of interest, and then it can analyze this area and automatically present the output to you. So another website is National Biodiversity Information System. It is hosted at IRS Dehradun. URL is bis.iirs.gov.in. It is a national data repository for the online data analysis, data sharing and dissemination. And it is based on a national-wide project what ISRO has executed for Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. So national level data on vegetation type map, fragmentations, disturbance index, and the biological richness is available in this website. This is a special data viewer of the Biodiversity Information System website. So here, the lot of GIS tools are available to analyze this data. Very, very interactive website. So you can convert into 2D view, 3D view. You can analyze the data, sample plot data, plant species data, vegetation type map, and you can also analyze data on the fly. This is another website developed by Space Application Center, Ahmedabad. Is a basically visualization of Earth observation data and archival system. We also call it as a Vedas, and this is very, very interesting website. In fact, I can say they have implemented a special data cube for a time series analysis of geospatial data. If you have any indices like NDVI, you have any other indices, or you can customize your own algorithm here, and it can analyze the data on the fly, and then you can see the trends or changes, and up to the field level analysis you can perform here. And you please visit this website. Very, very interesting tools are available for thematic applications and online data analysis. So here, at the user end, you do not require any GIS software to perform geospatial analysis. A simple web browser will be more than sufficient to analyze this data and get the required output into simple web environment. Then for the disaster management activities, we also ISRO is hosting a portal called ISRO DMSP, ISRO Disaster Management Support Program, and then National Database for Emergency Management. Under these programs, lot of data on the natural disasters is hosted, and these natural disasters what we are basically addressing are the flood, cyclones, earthquake, landslide, and then drought. We also have the forest fire. We address these six natural disasters, and daily basis the updates are published there, especially during this time since it is a time of the forest fire. So daily update we are publishing this website called ISRO Disaster Management Support Program website. It is available under Bhuvan portal itself. Indian Bioresource Information Network, or IBIN, this is another geo web service which is hosted at IRS Dehradun. URL is ibin.gov.in. It is basically a special data infrastructure for bioresource data in the country. So data from the different bioresource data centers are linked together, and the plant species data, flora and fauna, both are available. It is linked with their location maps, and then special distribution of this species. You can see, you can analyze the data on the fly through this website. Very interesting website where maps are available, plus the attribute information for flora and fauna are together available. Typically, if you are looking for any medicinal plant like a Sanjeevani, or you are looking for some endemic plants, so you can search for this plant in this website, and it will also give you the exact location where it is available. And then it will also link with the climatic parameters, climatic data, or maybe other scientific data, so that you can do further analysis with this data in the website itself. Another geo web services which is hosted in the for India is Indian Water Resource Information System, or we call it India WARIS. This is a project basically developed for Central Water Commission, or jointly by ISRO and CWC. And here the groundwaters and surface water information is available, and last 100-year data is hosted in this website. I understand that currently they are in the upgradation stage. For some time this data is not accessible these days, and we are expecting that soon they will make it live for public access. It was again a very, very interesting website where the terabytes of data is made available to the users as a geo web services. Yeah, mobile GIS part I will be skipping because my colleague will be taking the separate session on this part. In the online GIS, another important aspect is a online mapping and editing. So whatever we have seen in the quantum GIS, that you can create your own thematic map, you can do the digitization activities, but in online geo web services, you have ready-made tools available in a website like Bhuvan Mapper, OpenStreetMap, where if you create your login, then you can create your own maps, you can digitize there. Satellite imageries are available free of cost. Since time is very less, I would have otherwise demonstrated you how you can create on the fly your own map in this website. So here you can see the digitization tools are available, and three basic geometry like point, line, polygons you can draw. And the left side you can see here the non-special data or attribute are basically available for different category, and you can fill this data and automatically it will build your geospatial data. And once you complete it, then you can download it as a zip file for your further use. A very interesting methods. So here advantage is, if this kind of mapping tools are available in the website itself, then you can involve hundreds or thousands of people simultaneously into your mapping projects, and you can develop your GIS project very easily. So mobile part I am just escaping. Yeah, I think that's all from my side. Thank you very much.